Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are starting a new chapter today of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 12, which is entitled Devotional Service. Start with verse number 1 in Sanskrit. Arjuna Vacha Evam Satata Yukta Ye Bhaktasvam Paryupasate Ye Chapyaksharam Avyaktam Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect? Those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmanitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita entitled Devotional Service itself indicates that Krishna is now going into the most confidential knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, where he's going to explain through Arjuna to us what is the importance of performing service to the Lord with love and devotion. Now, I'll cover verses 1 through 7 today. And basically, it's a very important question Arjuna is asking Krishna. What is the question? He's asking, what is the difference between a personalist and an impersonalist? So he wants to know who is more perfect. Is it the one who, worships the personal form of the Lord, or an impersonalist who believes in Brahman or Brahman effulgence or Brahma Jyoti, the effulgence of the Supreme Lord? Arjuna wants to know who is more perfect amongst these two. Now, the personalist engages in practical devotional service, practical, where, it is not just, if supposing my mother tells me that I want you to get married, and I'm like, okay, with whom do I get married? And she says, oh, he is some light, and I would be like, that's crazy. How can I build a relationship with a light? There has to be a person, a personality whom I can relate to, whom I can build a relationship with. So the same thing applies, if we really want to become self-realized, if we really want to kind of come out of this cycle of birth and death, if we really want to get rid of all the miseries in life, then here is what this chapter is talking about. Krishna is showing us, how we can perform service to him with devotion, purify our mind and senses, and go back to the spiritual world. It is not possible to build a relationship with something which is light, an effulgence. Now, the Supreme Lord Krishna, from his body is transcendental. We've heard in the Vedas, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha, that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and he has a personal form, but it is not a material form that we have. Our body is made of blood, whatever is inside this body, it's all material, but the Lord's body is transcendental. It is Sat, Chit, and Anand. Sat, eternal; Chit, full of knowledge; Anand means full of bliss. So his body is transcendental. And here Krishna is suggesting to Arjuna to engage in service to the personal form. Now, there are some yogis who like to do a lot of meditation in seclusion. They probably go to the Himalayas, to the forest, or to some secluded place and meditate. Meditate on what? On the impersonal form of the Lord. They think that the Lord does not have a form. You know, we've heard this saying which says, man is made in the image of God. So if a man has a form, and if man is made in the image of God, man of course includes woman also, but if the man has a form, then obviously God has to have a form. Otherwise, how can a man be made in the image of God? So here Krishna is going to explain in these 7 verses difference between a personalist and an impersonalist. Now, the impersonalist, who does not believe in the form of the Lord, engages himself not directly worshipping him, but indirectly worshipping through the Brahman effulgence, through that strong effulgence, bright effulgence that comes out from the body of the Supreme Lord. This chapter 12 is devotional service, which means bhakti yoga. We've heard in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita about the yoga ladder, that there is karma yoga, dhyana yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, but the topmost is bhakti yoga, which is devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And that is a way to directly build a relationship with Krishna, with his personal form. So that is considered a personalist. So here Arjuna's question is, which is better? A personalist is better or an impersonalist? He wants to know. So that brings about a topic about the 3 stages of understanding this. So Krishna explains to Arjuna that there are 3 levels of understanding. One is the Brahman, second is Paramatma, and the topmost is Bhagavan realization. Brahman realization, which is the lowest, is realizing the Supreme Lord in the form of an effulgence. There is no relationship as such, because to build a relationship, we need a personality. The second level, middle level, is called Paramatma realization. Paramatma, the translation is super soul, which is within the heart. So the Lord is situated in everyone's heart as the super soul. So that is the second level of realization, where the yogis, they meditate for many, many years. And their goal is to realize the super soul within the heart. But Krishna suggests to Arjuna that higher than that is Bhagavan realization. Bhagavan, Bhaga means opulences. One means possessor of those opulences. So in the Vedic scriptures, there is a very nice reference where it says, Aishwarasya Samagrasya Vidasya Yashashriya. There are 6 opulences. If anyone has those 6 opulences in full, that personality is considered to be the supreme personality of Godhead, which means the Supreme Lord. And we see that these 6 opulences in full are present in Krishna as per the Vedic scriptures. So Bhagavan realization of the Supreme Lord as a personality is the highest. Now, in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, we got the basic foundation of this the scripture, and the basic foundation is dehi no asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yaumanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. Krishna tells Arjuna that as the embodied soul, it's talking about embodied, which means the soul is inside the body and the soul is covered up by the body. So as the embodied soul continuously passes from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly, the soul passes on to another body at the time of death. A sober person, he calls him a dhira. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change, which means he is indicating to us that we need to become sober. We need to become self-realized. We need to understand we are not this body, but we are the spirit soul. Now, in chapter 6, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga, Krishna tells Arjuna, the very last verse, after explaining how one should meditate, what are the requirements for meditation, etc. Then the very last verse, he says, Yogi nam api sarvesham. Sarvesham means topmost. Who is the topmost yogi? Mad gati nantar atmana. Anyone, any yogi who's thinking of me within his heart all the time is the topmost yogi. Not the one who goes to the forest, not the one who meditates, not the one who performs austerities. No, it's a matter of consciousness. It's a matter of thinking of the Lord within the heart all the time. Now, in chapter 7, Krishna explains to Arjuna, Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. He says, every living entity is my part. Amsha means part. Mamai means my part. That means we are all children of the Supreme Lord. You see, so what is the conclusion of all the chapters that we've been hearing so far, all the way from chapter 1 through 11? Now we've reached chapter 12. What we learned is that if we attach ourselves to the personal form of the Lord, not an impersonal aspect where we think that God is some light, there's no way we can build a relationship like that. You see, so here Arjuna is asking the question to clarify his position. He wants to know, am I a personalist or am I an impersonalist? He's definitely a personalist. Why? Because he's attached to the personal form of Krishna. Personal form, which means Krishna is a person. Now, in chapter 11, which is entitled Universal Form, we heard about the wonderful, absolutely opulent form of Krishna, where he showed his universal form, where you could see everybody and everything inside that form of Krishna. You could see the demigods, you could see the sun, the planets, all the different species of life. So Arjuna could see everything, everybody inside. What does that mean? That he is Ishvaraha, Parama Ishvara, he is the Supreme Lord. And that form is for the impersonalist, whereas the two-handed form of Krishna is Satchidananda Vigraha, which is very dear to the devotees. Now, when Arjuna asks this question to Krishna, in the next verse, Krishna says, those who fix their mind on my personal form. He's making it very clear. He doesn't say those who fix their mind on my effulgence or my impersonal form. No, on my personal form. And he says, and those who worship me with great faith. You see, faith is required in any aspect of life, whether we want to build a relationship, we want to get married, a job, business, learning something new, whatever it may be, basic faith is required. But here Krishna is telling Arjuna, fix your mind on my personal form and worship me with great faith. He says such a person is most perfect. So he's answering Arjuna's question, and he's saying it's important to concentrate on his personal form. Now, the very, simple way, an easy way to concentrate or fix our mind on the personal form of Krishna is by chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. When we chant especially on a daily basis, then purification happens. The heart gets purified, the senses get purified, the mind gets purified, the body gets purified, the finer brain tissues get purified, and then there is progress towards self-realization, where we really are able to understand who are we, where have we come from, what are we doing in this material world, what is the goal of life, and most importantly, what after death? Where do we go? So these are very important questions that a human being should inquire. We do not expect animals to inquire because they don't have that philosophical intelligence. They cannot understand. But we, as human beings, we definitely can understand. So here we can understand that fixing our mind on Krishna actually means constantly remembering him, constantly hearing, chanting, reading the Bhagavad Gita. So when we do all this, it can be considered that one is in samadhi. You know, people in general do not understand the real meaning of samadhi. Samadhi is, people generally think samadhi means you close your eyes and you sit upright and you concentrate your mind on one object or whatever it may be, and relax, and that is samadhi. No, that's not samadhi. When we are actively engaged in Krishna consciousness with full concentration, that is samadhi. That is actual samadhi, which means we are progressing towards liberation. Now, in verse 3 and 4, Krishna is talking to Arjuna about indirect worship, indirect process, you see, which is trying to become self-realized through impersonalism. In other words, not believing that the Supreme Lord has a form. In the earlier chapters, we heard Krishna tells Arjuna, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Sudurlabha means very rare. Out of manushyanam sahash, out of thousands of people, thousands of men, you see, manushyanam sahash, no, sorry, bahunam janmanamante, after many births. Bahunam means many, janmanam, births. Gyanavan mam prapadyate, the one who is in knowledge surrenders unto me, Krishna says. He understands Vasudeva Sarvam iti, that Vasudeva, Krishna, is all in all. But he says, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Such a great soul is very rare. Mahatma is a great soul. So after many births, we have got this human form of body, which is very rare. So why should we waste this human form of life? So Bhagavad Gita teaches us a method by which we can control our senses, by which we can purify our senses, by which we can become successful in this human form of life, break the cycle of birth and death, which is a place of misery. You see, birth, disease, old age, death, these are all miseries. Have we ever seen any child who's born laughing? No. All children are born crying. Why? Because it's suffering. Staying in the womb for 9 months in that position. Disease is suffering. Old age is suffering. Ask me. And finally, death. Death is also suffering. So here Bhagavad Gita is teaching us that if we go on the personalist path, where we worship Krishna in his personal form, then we will be able to understand the real purpose of life. Whereas impersonalists, their path is very difficult. And this is what Krishna tells Arjuna, that in verse number 5, he says that, the impersonalists who do not believe in the form of the Lord, advancement for them is very troublesome. He's giving that word, troublesome, which means personalist path is not troublesome, whereas impersonalist path, advancement is troublesome. Why? Because it's difficult to progress. We are actually embodied. We are the spirit soul is inside this body. It is like a cage for the soul. It's embodied. So it is very difficult to break free. But if one follows the personalist path, then it is possible. And those are called bhakti yogis. Bhakti means devotion. Yogi is the one who's a devotee of the Lord, who performs devotional service. Whereas those who are jnanis, who only want to get knowledge, just here, and not put it into practice, they also have a goal, to do bhakti yoga, but it takes them a very long time and it is troublesome. This is what Krishna is saying. Whereas the path of bhakti yoga is very simple and it's a direct worship of Krishna. It's easier and it is natural. So if we somehow or the other understand, I am not this body, theoretically, it's very easy to understand, but to put it into practice is difficult. It needs training, it needs practice, and the very first step to self-realization is chanting the holy names of the Lord. That those sound vibrations, they purify our hearts. So because Krishna is talking about personalists and impersonalists, Srila Prabhupada explains that concentrating, fixing our mind on the personal form of the Lord is easier. And that is why Krishna in this Kali Yuga has given us an option to worship him in the deity form. When we go to the temple, we see, some call it a statue, but we call it a deity form of the Lord, where we can try to build a relationship. Say, for instance, when my mother says, you got to get married now, and your husband is so and so. I have never met him. You're going to marry so and so. I haven't met him. So if, excuse me, if I have a picture of that gentleman, then I can say, oh, this is what he looks like. And I get some information. This is where he works. This is where he lives, etc., etc. Then it's possible to start building a relationship. See, and of course, there is a form also. So here, for us to build a relationship with Krishna, he's given us the deity form, so that, which is actually, the deity form is authorized by the Vedas. You see, and when we worship the deity form, we are actually purifying our senses. Now, the deity form, there is no difference between the Supreme Lord Krishna and the deity form. Let me give you an analogy. Say, supposing the post office is kind of very far from my house, and I want to mail a letter. All I need to do is, of course, put the stamp on the envelope, put the address, and, in different parts of the city, there are mailboxes. Those are authorized mailboxes, which have been put there by the post office, which is also an authorized post office. So if I put my letter in that mailbox, is it going to reach the destination? Yes. Why? Because that mailbox is a representative of the post office. Now, post office cannot be at every nook and corner, but a mailbox can be there at every nook and corner. So similarly, deities are like the mailbox, which are authorized. So deity form is authorized, that will carry our worship, our devotion to wherever it needs to go. So Krishna accepts our service through the deity form. Now, it is not easy for a common man to understand. Impersonal way of self-realization is very, very troublesome and very long and difficult. Just reading the Vedas, learning the language, the Sanskrit language, etc., is good. But if one does not perform devotional service, if one does not take guidance, does not get the training, then there's going to be no progress. See, anything that we want to do in this world, whether I want to learn dancing, singing, music, karate, business, software, engineering, anything that I want to learn, I have to approach a bona fide teacher, someone who is well versed in what I want to learn. For instance, I want to learn dancing. I need to approach a dancer who is authorized, bona fide, is certified, has experience. Then only that teacher can teach me what I want to learn. So similarly, even in spirituality, we need a bona fide spiritual teacher. So when we hear from the teacher, when we chant the holy names of the Lord, then it becomes much easier. So this is the difference between personalist and an impersonalist. Impersonalist is trying to become self-realized through the impersonal path, where does not really think about the form, the transcendental form of the Lord, but just meditating on Brahman, or the Brahma Jyoti, or the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. Whereas the personalist is worshiping Krishna in his personal, transcendental personal form by hearing, by chanting, by learning about him. You see, we are spirit souls. That is what we learned in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. And we also learned that we are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. And not only that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna himself, says, Jivera Swarupoy Krishnera Nitya Das. Jivera Swarup, our constitutional position is Krishna's Nitya Das, means eternal servants. So we are, actually, if we see, we are servants, whether we are, servant of the Supreme Lord, or we are of course servants of our family, servants of our spouse, servants of our children. We are working hard, taking care of the family, of children. We are servant of the boss, because in the office we are working for the boss. Some of y'all may have some pets, so you're serving the pet, so you're the servant of the pet. So we are serving all the time. So why not serve Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He is the one who can help us break the cycle of birth and death. But of course, we have a freedom of choice. When we go to chapter number 15, in verse number 15, Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto. I'm situated in everyone's heart. Mataha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. He says, from me within the heart comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So he's giving us a choice. He's not forcing it down our throat. No, you've got to think of me. You've got to worship me. No. He's giving us a choice. We can remember him, we can take on his knowledge, or we can forget him. So whatever we choose, is going to fulfill our desire. Now, in the last two verses that I'm going to cover today, 6 and 7, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna about the conditions in which one can get delivered. You see, so worship, when we worship, we should worship in such a way that we offer all our activities to the Supreme Lord, which means with full devotion. Like for instance, I go to my place of work in the morning. So when I go there, my consciousness, if my consciousness is that today I'm going to work to the best of my ability, I will finish my work, I'll do whatever is expected of me, but I will do it for the pleasure of the Lord. And whatever I'm going to earn from my job, I'm going to use it in the service of the Lord. In other words, I'll buy groceries and I'm going to cook some nice food. I'll offer it to Krishna. And I'm going to eat the sanctified, blessed food, which is called prasadam. And that prasadam really purifies our body, our senses, our finer brain tissues, mind, everything is purified by just eating sanctified food. So you see what we are doing. If we are, working also, doing all our activities in that consciousness, without deviation, with complete focus, engaging in devotional service, fixing our mind on Krishna, which is very easy to do if we chant. All we need to do is chant the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. How difficult is that? So Krishna says, when one engages in devotional service, meditates upon me, fixes mind upon me, then he says, I'm going to take them out of this ocean of birth and death. I will deliver them. He's going to deliver them. Now, the ocean, I'm sure all of us, have, seen the ocean, gone to the beach, seen the ocean. Is it possible to swim across the ocean? Definitely not. Ocean is so vast. We may be the best swimmer, but we will not be able to swim across the ocean because it's gigantic. It's not possible. But here Krishna says that if you do as per the requirements, then he says, I can deliver you from this ocean of material world. So here we have a very nice formula by which we can come out of this cycle of birth and death. All we need to do is have a goal in life, understand our position, who are we, and understand what is my prescribed duty. And if we do that, then it becomes very, very easy. And best way to fix the mind is by chanting the holy names of the Supreme Lord. So here we see that Arjuna, he's asked such a wonderful question, and Krishna is answering his question. And he is also giving him an idea of how to get delivered from this ocean of material world. So he, of course, when we go to the later chapters, now even the later verses in this chapter are very, very interesting, where Krishna is going to give us many options. I remember when I was in school decades ago, we used to have final examinations, even midterm exams, final exams. And in the question paper, sometimes they would give us multiple choice. You see, multiple choice. So they ask a question, a question is asked, and then 4 or 5 answers are given, and we need to choose one. So those are called different options. So similarly, in this chapter 12, devotional service, which is called Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is going to give us options. He knows we are lazy people. We want many options. Okay, do this. I can't do that. Okay, then do this. No, I can't do that. Okay, no, okay, you can do this. So he's giving us so many options, which we will learn in the next class, which is going to be next Wednesday. So here we can see that the impersonalists or the Jnana yogis, their interest is mainly to transfer themselves to the heavenly planets, to the higher planets. Whereas the devotees of the Lord Krishna, they are interested in going back to the spiritual world. Now, the higher planets or the heavenly planets, according to the Bhagavad Gita, is also in the material realm, which means one has to come back into the material world after completing enjoying over there. Whereas if a person goes to the spiritual world, then that person does not come back into this material world. So devotees, they depend completely on Krishna, and all they do is just follow the instructions given in the Bhagavad Gita. What is required of us? Just follow the Bhagavad Gita. That's about it. We all know we are in the material world. We all know that there are miseries in this material world. We have fallen into this ocean. And if we want to save ourselves, we need help. And Krishna is there to rescue us. Now, from the next in the next Wednesday class, from verse number 8 onwards, Krishna will describe devotional service more in detail, and he will give us the freedom of choice. We can choose which option do we want to take. And of course, the whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to teach us how to perform devotional service. So this is what we learn from chapter number 12, verse 1 through 7. Now, there's a very nice question by Brittany. What do you say or pray when you offer prasadam? So there is a process. Now, there are two options. One is a simple process, which is, you can start doing in a simple way, but as you progress, then you can go to the next level. So the simple process is that Krishna tells Arjuna, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prajachati, that we can offer him a leaf, a fruit, a flower, or water. These are the 4 items. Now, when we go to chapter 17, we will also see all different options also, like foods are in different modes. So we can offer food in the mode of goodness, which means vegetarian food without onion and garlic. So when we cook the food, we do not taste it. We have a separate plate for the Lord, and we put whatever we've cooked in there. And I don't know where you live, but we need to also put a tulasi leaf. Tulasi is a holy plant. I'm not sure if you are aware of tulasi. So we put a tulasi plant. And in the beginning, all we can do is, with all our love and devotion and heart, we can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare 3 times and offer that. And after a few minutes, take that and mix it with all the other, in the pot, and then that becomes prasadam, that becomes sanctified food. Now, if you want to, do the advanced level, then there are certain prayers that we offer, Namo Mahabodhanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayata. So there are 2-3 prayers that we offer. And maybe next Wednesday, I can, if you're interested, I can give you those prayers. So we offer those. And, basically the idea is, the main ingredient is love. Krishna is looking for love. He's not looking for food. So when we offer with love and devotion, then he accepts it. And then that food becomes prasadam. So, so this is bhakti yoga. This is one form of bhakti yoga, one form of devotional service. So this chapter number 12, okay, I will, thank you so much. Yes, there is, let me post. So these are the links, the Zoom link of like Wednesday lectures. Then there's Facebook page. There's a YouTube channel. You can click on that, and all the previous recordings are there in that YouTube channel. And then there's a WhatsApp group, which you can join, where I post realizations on a daily basis. And then, of course, towards the end is the Maha Mantra that we chant every day. So if you don't mind, I will chant a few times. So if you like, you can also chant along with me. So here are my beads, the chanting beads. So we just chant for a few times. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you see, it's very simple. I just chanted 10 times. If you chant 108 times, it takes about 10 minutes. Then it is considered to be one round of chanting. So it's my humble request, please chant, on a daily basis. And this will lead us to self-realization. So I'm going to stop here now.